Welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. Today's episode is sport. A homeschool dad recently asked me about sport for his just-started homeschooled children. His eyes showed genuine concern. He assumed his children wouldn't be able to play sport or have access to it like school children did. As I looked into his eyes, I realized sport meant a lot more to him than to me. Sure, it's good for exercise, playing as a team, and burning off energy, but I was reading something more. I told him of our experiences during our 20 years of homeschooling and the opportunities our 5 children had and what they carried into their adulthood. By the time we'd finished chatting and he had heard our stories, his eyes showed less concern and more of the excited sparkle as he was reassured and thinking about the marvellous possibilities for him and their children. So what is the purpose of sport? In the West, we put a lot of time and money into it. But why? There's the health aspect. That's a given and doesn't need explanation. Also, the importance our culture places in sport. Attaining the levels of local and national teams, the dreams of young children and teens of the successful sportsman or woman, medals, ribbons, and being the hero. Every culture values the hero. For us, it's often in the sports. What are the chances of your children making it into the top league, teams, and academies? Very small. I'm going to use basketball as an example. For these boys who played basketball and had dreams, it got them out of bed early in the morning to train. They had a goal, created skills on the court, which they still have as adults playing in the social leagues. They were fit, learned the value of discipline, and that success and expertise in anything doesn't come easily. They made close friends who not only played on the court together, knowing how to trust and the strengths and weaknesses of each other, but friendships to potentially go on into adulthood. The nitty-gritty of what we did. A group of homeschooling parents formed the group HASCA, an acronym for Homeschool Arts, Sport and Cultural Association. It was formed about 20 years ago and still is in operation. New parents replacing the original instigators as the years went by. Parents were involved where they could or wanted to be. It's a registered association requiring AGMs and accountability. It can also apply for financial grants, and successful applications supply uniforms and equipment. Under its umbrella, we organised music and art festivals, concerts and other activities falling under cultural, but mostly it was for sport. There was a protest to remove our successful teams from the netball league as we were too good. Not that that was the reason given, but our teams were regularly beating the school teams. The regional school principals met together to protest our involvement as we were not a school. It was argued, since we had removed ourselves from the school system, we forfeited our privilege to compete with the schools. It took a bit of firm insistence and demonstrating we were indeed qualified to compete. We may not attend a physical school, but legally our children were all being educated according to our Ministry of Education's guidelines, just as the schools do. So our children stayed in the leagues, and it became the precedent for any other challenges of this nature. On Thursday afternoons, we were at the local YMCA. There were mini-ball and basketball practices, fitness and skills training. Other sports and activities were slotted into this weekly event. A lot of the children came for fun, or because their parents required them to do a sport of some kind. Mini-ball is what the younger children play before they're old enough for basketball. From memory, between 5 and maybe 7 years of age. If there was a reluctance for the Thursday activity, our children had to join mini-ball practice for 5 weeks. One of our girls needed this requirement. She'd know, and so would I, whether or not the mini ball or basketball was for her. There was no point on insisting she played if she didn't enjoy it. Neither did she like netball, whereas her other two sisters played for a few years. Never mind, she enjoyed tennis and later embarked on the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which required regular physical activity and lots of tramping over the 4 years. All students coming to the YMCA had fun. Some were more serious than others and took the commitment of joining a team. All built coordination skills, ball handling, and getting on with others in a team. It was especially good for children who were alone at home or small families. The mums enjoyed each other's company, browsed the homeschooling library, or took the chance to escape next door to the cafe for a chat over coffee. These Thursdays became a weekly encouragement and therapy for the mothers. We could talk, moan, cry, laugh, and ask advice. Most of all, we were with other women who understood each other. I went to the YMCA for 18 years, every Thursday during term time. It was just part of being a homeschool family. We were so grateful for this opportunity for our children. You can inquire about joining local rugby and soccer teams, if there are enough homeschool children to form a team, and join the club. If there are not, talk to the club about joining one of their teams. There have been homeschool gym classes and swimming groups consistently over the years. Since you need qualified gym teachers and proper equipment, gym may not be as accessible. But for swimming, all you need is a local pool and to comply with whatever are their policies. Having someone teach how to swim properly is your goal, not just to splash around. Life-saving can also be taught as an important add-on. There were tennis lessons and games during the warmer months. We hired a tennis coach to come weekly with his ball-throwing machine and teach how to hit forehand, backhand, and serve. Going to fetch the numerous tennis balls to go back into the machine was part of the fun. We had day programs organised by homeschooling parents for sporting activities including archery, canoeing, abseiling, and other sports I can't remember. Over the years, the children were introduced to and had more opportunities to try games than I ever remember when I was at school. Wherever there is an interest in a particular sport, you can probably find an opportunity to participate, especially those in bigger centres. If you're in a smaller town, by its very nature, there will be less options. But start with what you have there and see if there are enough homeschoolers to approach or combine with other towns. Bear in mind that even in the cities, there isn't always the sport you're after. For the most part, I've observed children just want to play and play with others. The sport type is secondary. A challenge I do put to you is, how many sports does a child need? I'm going to include dance classes here too. I addressed the time commitment back in a previous podcast, as the more time involved in practices of multiple sports and dance classes, the less time there is for a child to be, or masterly inactivity as it is called. This masterly inactivity is just as important as maths, reading and sport to include in your week. It's not leftover time, but strategically placed. Where will you fit it into your family life? There is also the conundrum of being too busy for anything else, including friends. Teaching them the stress of having to do a lot instead of the forgotten value of using time for other culturally less valued activities. It's much too stressful on the parent too, leading unnecessarily to, stress. You've got a family to raise by your chosen path of homeschooling, and you need all the energy you can get for these precious years. Homeschoolers do life differently, and this includes how we spend our time. And the money, gosh, the money, fees, trips, uniforms, equipment, tutoring, dancing costumes. It never ends. Seriously, sit down and work out how much you are paying out and when is enough enough. Why does she have to do every type of dance class when one will do? Ballet, tap, jazz. Whilst I agree that dance is great for posture, deportment and elegance, I would suggest one type of dance commitment would be sufficient. The chances of your little ballerina making the big time are, I'm sorry to disappoint, minuscule. I just can't get my head around the time and expense over the years. Please choose to ignore me if you wish. It's only my opinion, but I do ask you at least consider all these things. For us, one sport per season was our guide. For efficiency, some played the same sport. There came a time for one of our sons when he wanted to play soccer and basketball in the winter. He had to negotiate and prove to us why he could play both. For us to say yes meant we were backing down on our family guidelines, but negotiating and talking things through to arrive at a change is part of what we were teaching our children to do and be. He really did have to plan his talking well. Not only the how he was going to arrange the extra travel, time away and expense, but the agreement we could stop if the extra sport disrupted our family too much. It worked out. In fact, a season or two later, he decided he'd rather play basketball than soccer anyway. However, at the time, it just wasn't possible to choose. Both were indispensable to him. What to do if your child really does show an aptitude and skill in sport or dance? You'll need to decide how far to pursue it. Somebody's son is going to be an All Black, or a child will grow up to play in the NBA or dance with the London Ballet Company. However, even these attainments last a few short years, and the sportsman or woman and the dancer will all need another career or trade for life. In other words, sport and dance come second when investing in their future. Knowing this and yet not bursting their balloon as you go through the years of dreams is a discipline on your part. Commitment, playing, dancing, and knowing when to pull back is a delicate balancing act for the parents. You won't always get it right. At the beginning of this episode, I said I could see sport was more important to the father than it was to me, and I have to say most of the courtside mums I knew. We mums were committed, no doubt about that. We took them faithfully to practice and games. We stood out in hideous weather to support and call encouragement to our soccer and netball players. Many of us took positions of coach or manager, umpire, and turns on the score bench. But there was something deeper for the father of these children. It had to be a man thing, so I thought I'd better seek the input of my husband. He pondered a while and gave a succinct list: the competition, discipline, camaraderie, and controlled aggression. My husband and I do not hold to the modern idea in some quarters that boys and girls are born with a blank slate and thereafter socially conditioned to behave in certain ways. This is not the right podcast to venture into gender issues, so I'll leave it there. If you have sons and daughters, you probably already know boys and girls are different. There are always the exceptions of more competitive girls and boys who are on the timid side. But although girls are competitive, boys tend to be more competitive. Girls prefer best friends. Boys prefer a group of boys. Boys tend to like to play rough. Girls, not so much. There are always the outliers, but it's the general and large majority group we're referring to. The competition in boys is especially noticed at puberty. All that testosterone. Almost all will be taller and stronger than their female peers, hence the need for discipline and controlled aggression. There's a reason why the soccer, basketball and rugby teams attract the skilled and the strongest, and those who have learned discipline from a young age. He may be strong and skilled, But if he lacks the discipline not to lash out when tackled or have the ball taken, he'll be subbed and dropped from the team pretty quickly. The human trait of belonging to a team and the secondary but culturally equally important supporting of your team can be observed as a clear example of this deeper cultural need for sport. Look to the sidelines of the school games, and more so to the stadium holding thousands of passionate supporters as your team plays another. It seems we need our heroes, our team, our people. Some have said in times of peace, the soccer, football or rugby field becomes the battleground. A fight, but with controlled aggression, a winner and a loser. My husband also included this gem. Sometimes the parents on the sideline need a reminder their behaviour is important. What example are you setting for your children? Let your children see their parents are behaving properly. Sport is important, not just for the individual need of your child, but on a greater level for our culture. Has this podcast been helpful to you? Please subscribe and share it, as this means that more homeschoolers just like you will have it. And please go to our website, cominghomeinfo.com, for resources and to contact me regarding consultations or speaking. I'll see you next week.